You only need to know me. I will be the one.
A lot of people have been discussing Zoro recently, well, not recently, but ever since chapter 1010 and his consequent recovery, or well, a recovery that is in process. Many are wondering what will happen to Zoro, and when he does awaken, so to speak, or heal and return to full strength, will he have unlocked something new, a new ability or power? To consider this possibility, there are various things we need to discuss, one of which comes from a chapter I've talked about a lot recently given all the conversation it sparked. Chapter 1010, as well as consequent chapters that depict Zoro heavily bandaged, mummified you could say, a form that is eerily reminiscent of something and so someone. Needless to say, when the bandages come off, will Zoro be reborn? But first, chapter 1010, a chapter aptly titled Conqueror's Haki, or in other translations, The Color of the Supreme King. Not only does Luffy awaken a new ability during his fight with Kaido, but Zoro does too, or at least he comes to recognize that his Ashura might be a Conqueror's related ability, we think. I'm still torn on this idea, just like the video I made recently asking if Sanji had the qualities of a king, if Sanji had Conqueror's Haki himself. We just don't know for sure, unless Oda confirms this. In the upcoming chapter, we just don't know if Zoro using Ashura is itself Conqueror's, or if Zoro combined Conqueror's Haki with Ashura subconsciously to injure Kaido. But Zoro sees Luffy lying there on the ground as Kaido approaches his captain with laughter in his voice. Something interesting to point out, even question is, how did Zoro actually use Ashura? We hear Kaido just earlier remind us of the time Luffy used the Conqueror's ability unconsciously, but Zoro seems to be using Ashura consciously. He is fully aware of what is going on. His actions are deliberate, not unintentional. Are we ever given an explanation as to how Zoro learned this technique, aside from what it exactly is? During his fight with Kaku, after incurring a lot of damage, he activated the ability to come out on top. Kaku refers to Ashura as Zoro's fighting spirit, and so it seems to be a spirit that gave Zoro strength despite his injuries. Ashura, because it multiplies Zoro's arms and head by 3, giving him 9 blades, seems to triple Zoro's strength. It's a power boost. This relates to a video I'm working on about Advanced Conquerors, an expansion of earlier Advanced Conquerors discussions, and another application in which power can be multiplied. If Ashura is Conquerors, and again, it's not confirmed, but it seems for now to be one of those final moves, something you use as a last resort to amplify your overall strength. Maybe this too applies to Luffy, wherein his own will can push him beyond his limits at times. We saw Zoro use Ashura again against one of the pacifists on Sabaody in the past, between chapters 510 and 511. I don't recall what injuries Zoro endured leading up to that fight, but as you can see he's heavily injured or somewhat damaged. But with his back against the wall again, we see him use Ashura before Luffy himself deals the final blow. I think it's important to consider Zoro's state after using Ashura, however. He's out of energy, drained, totally depleted, as if his spirit or Haki was exhausted. Since Ashura being Haki is a likely explanation, I'm pretty sure this is the last time Zoro uses Ashura pre-time skip aside from the non-canon movies. Post-time skip, the first time Zoro uses Ashura again is upon Onigashima in his fight with Kaido, which now takes us back to chapter 1010. Like I was saying earlier, Zoro sees Luffy lying there on the ground as Kaido approaches his captain with laughter in his voice. In preparation, Zoro tells Law to get ready because what he's about to do is the limit of his ability. Again, breaking limits. Once more, when pushed to the edge, after suffering severe injuries from 2 Emperors of the Sea, Zoro relies upon his strongest, or one of his strongest techniques thus far in the series, Ashura Sword Drawing, Jest of the Dead. A powerful version of Ashura, it would seem, that may involve Conqueror's Haki as speculated by Kaido. Again, either Zoro imbues Conqueror's Haki into his blades, or Ashura itself is a Conqueror's attack. Zoro, putting all his remaining strength into the slash, proved capable of greatly injuring Kaido, at least enough so that it left a new cut behind. Kaido, after expressing surprise, great surprise, that Zoro can use the color of the Supreme King as well, makes note of this large bloody gash across his front torso, an extension of Odin's original wound, and says, while remaining on his feet, that the blow would leave a significant scar. On the other hand, Zoro expressed confusion over Kaido's praise, unaware of this conqueror's potential that was dormant or perhaps always active within himself. The consequent resurrection of Luffy, his short speech, and the flashbacks that ensue. The words of Hyogoro that echo the teachings of Rayleigh that Haki only blooms in the midst of battle or danger. This now leads us to consider what will happen to Zoro after his defeat to Kaido. Will his own Haki bloom? Will he unlock a new power? Let's go back to the start of Zoro's confrontation with Kaido. As Kaido approaches Luffy, Zoro is seen holding Enma in his hand. He imbues it with Haki. He uses Ryu to flow Haki from his body, or fist to his blade. I like to call Luffy's own new ability Conqueror's Flow, because if Zoro flowed Conqueror's Haki to his sword, then it is Conqueror's Ryu. I'm just taking liberty with Oda's depiction of the ability, but I remember something Tenguyama has said about Enma as well in the past, or rather a few things. So a brief disclaimer, I actually made a theory video predicting the need for Zoro to fight Kaido a long time ago, before the fight even happened, and explained some of the reasoning there. It is titled, Why Zoro Will Surpass Mihawk's Legend vs. Kaido. You can see the link on the screen. Feel free to search it on YouTube. I will try to remember to post a link in the description below as well, but some of this might sound familiar to those of you that have been subscribed to the channel since then. When Enma was handed over to Zoro, Tenguyama warned him that up until then, before and after, only one man thus far had ever tamed Enma, and that man was Kozuki Oden. Granted, Kozuki Oden was a conqueror, his rare gift explains why none other than he that had ever held the blade in hand could ever tame Enma. We see the effect of the blade, knowing little restraint, place a tremendous strain on Zoro's Ryu or Haki, but in that moment and moments to follow, Zoro managed to tame Enma like Oden. It is thought Zoro used conquerors to temper the blade, to calm it. Tenguyama and the others are impressed by Zoro's ability, how his own will overcame that of the blades. And Zoro, ignoring the danger Enma might pose, declines to return it. Instead, he sees it as an opportunity to grow stronger. The question is, now after scarring Kaido similar to Oden, albeit not as majestically, has Zoro grown stronger? Has he shown he is worthy of Enma? And how might Oden's blade come to acknowledge him? How might Oda depict this? Going back to the scene against Kaido in which Zoro seems to imbue his aura into Enma, it's worth recognizing that the consequent panel showcases all of Zoro's blades, the Nidai Kitetsu and the Wado Ichimonji, all being imbued with this same Haki, conquerors or otherwise. So why the emphasis on Enma alone for that singular panel? Aside from the poetic justice it serves for someone that has inherited a part of Oden's will in the fight against Kaido to take him down, is it because Enma itself will be affected in some way as a result of this fight? Or will all Zoro's blades receive a similar transformation thereafter? If Haki truly blooms in the heat of battle, how does such a bloom manifest for a swordsman in particular? What flower will blossom after the aftermath of Zoro's defeat? Flowing conquerors in the middle of his battle with Kaido can be thought of as one such bloom, for that is how Oden scarred Kaido in the past. But how does Zoro surpass Oden, so that he can ultimately surpass Mihawk too down the road? Sometime after receiving Enma, Zoro was told by Tenguyama that the reason he is perhaps able to adjust to Enma so easily, why it feels so familiar, is because of fate, perhaps. For the Wado Ichimonji and Enma were both crafted by the same man, the blacksmith Shimasuke Kozaburo. Enma had not yet been forged into a black blade, he said, but depending on Zoro, its rank might yet be raised. To address Ryuma and Mihawk, I think this suggests that the repeated battles they had gone through in the past was a process of forging in its own right. That training the body and honing the soul, developing one's spirit or Haki directly translates into the strengthening of one's swordsmanship and the manifestation of a black blade. Perhaps the permanency of Ryu, or granted new information from chapter 1010, the infusing of conquerors permanently into the blade. We'll come back to Mihawk and Ryuma in a moment, but Roger and Whitebeard, I want to address them quickly. While they did not have black blades, and there's many questions to ask about this, their clash is very informative, I think. Two conquering wills surround their blades, and upon impact, the blades do not appear to touch, but really, perhaps they were. If your spirit becomes the blade, that is. Just as Luffy collided with Kaido's club, his foot doesn't appear to be touching, but perhaps his spirit was. And so your spirit does the battle for you, again, the power to fight with your spirit. Maybe there's a way for the spirit to become the blade permanently. If it is permanently infused with a sword or some other object, maybe the blade will not break until the wielder's will does. Returning to Tenguyama's words again, they are also a foreshadowing of what is possible for the Wado Ichimonji, that it too might also rise in rank and become a black blade. One of the two arguments out there for this is the fact that the Wado Ichimonji was the only sword that didn't break after being cut by Mihawk's Yoru. Important to note that Zoro's sword did not break after colliding with the world's strongest black blade, suggesting maybe the blade had a will of its own, that the water Ichimonji had a dream of its own at the time, Kuina's, one shared by Zoro too. Or maybe, given this panel here of Mihawk shortly prior to the collision, Mihawk might have seen with his powers of clairvoyance, believed to be an unrivaled sense of observation, something Zoro himself was unaware of in that moment. Just as Kaido telling Zoro in chapter 1010 that he used conquerors came to be a surprise to Zoro as well. That Kaido was shocked by Zoro's ability, which, as we continue to compare scenes, during the Baratie arc, Zoro, when using a move ironically named Three Sword Style Secret technique, something that is hidden, secret, yet to be revealed, had unconsciously infused the water Ichimonji with his own will or haki, maybe conquerors, without knowing it. And so while the other two blades shattered in midair, the water Ichimonji did not. Seeing such potential is one reason maybe for Mihawk to have spared Zoro's life, to have felt it was too soon for him to die, that he must, in his words, discover himself, see the world, and grow strong, by overcoming all the obstacles he would surely face while traveling toward the end of the Grand Line. Gyukimaru told us Ryuma was a sword god, that he had fought many battles and eventually developed a black blade. The exact moment of this event's occurrence is unknown, but some believe a black blade might define the world's strongest swordsman of the era, and so Ryuma was just that, the strongest when he was alive, maybe. Before the Great Pirate era, Mihawk too had fought many battles. When did he achieve a black blade? Did it occur after a specific victory? We know that Ryuma had fought, as his last greatest opponent, presumably a dragon. Was it only after defeating this dragon that Ryuma was recognized as a sword god, one who had obtained a black blade and mastered the sword, so to speak? As for Mihawk, his toughest opponent as far as we know was Shanks back in the day, and now he carefully waits for someone to rise to or surpass Shanks' level of strength, to challenge him in Shanks' stead. The interesting thing about undergoing many battles, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to update my earlier commentary on this topic, is something I thought about recently, a connection between Ryuma and Mihawk, and the question many have been asking about whether Mihawk has Conqueror's Haki, if Conqueror's is required for a black blade. Rayleigh told us something when training Luffy that I think relates the rarity of black blades to the rarity of Conqueror's Haki itself. Not everyone has the potential of a Conqueror or the capacity to awaken it. This rare ability can only be awakened by a select group of chosen ones, 1 in a million. Likewise, not everyone can obtain a black blade. Conquerors cannot be attained through training, instead its users must be born with the ability and can only learn to control it after discovering they have it. Conquerors cannot be strengthened through direct use like the other two forms of Haki, rather it grows stronger over time as the wielder endures more and more obstacles over the course of their lives. The greater the adversity, the stronger this spirit becomes, until eventually the spirit of a conqueror reveals itself. Likewise, I've always wondered whether Mihawk had a black blade from such a young age, or if he only came to have one after the countless battles he endured. Is it adversity that forges a black blade regardless of victory or loss, but incumbent upon an unyielding spirit, one that refuses to break or give up? And so a black blade in essence symbolizes just that, an unbreakable will. Conqueror's Haki is a rare form of Haki that allows the user to exert their own willpower over others and other things. Zoro's fight against Mr. One, when he says, "Convey my will to the blade," might have hinted at the concept of not just Ryu and Haki flow, but Conqueror's flow. That one day a will so great might be conveyed to each of his 3 blades, so that they are conquered, so that the sword and swordsman become one. To end out the video, Zoro's awakening, a new power. Aside from a black blade, what else about Zoro might change? Looking over Zoro's injured form, I honestly think, you guys, that Oda intentionally designed Zoro this way. Zoro's been wrapped up in the form of a cross, and he looks eerily similar to Mihawk's black blade Yoru. Given the religious imagery here, and how I mentioned in my video for chapter 1016 that Kozuki Oda and elements of Wano reflect Christianity to an extent, the concept of belief, undying faith, or will and rebirth, is Oda trying to tell us something? When considering Mihawk and his holy cross or crucifix, think of Dracula and how holy imagery is thought in one way to keep related darkness at bay. Does the cross symbolize conquering evil? Conquering one's demons or the devil, so to speak? Mihawk's famed sword Yoru is thought to be a cursed sword, but upon turning it black, did he conquer the blade and therein conquer its curse? The spirit that is thought to lie dormant within every blade. Will this hold true for Zoro? Are Mihawk's eyes a byproduct of conquering his blade's curse? Are they a side effect from obtaining a black blade? As for Zoro itself, Mihawk wears that sword on his back, and akin to a cross, it is the mark of one who has accepted a path of death or suffering and sacrifice. All this to be the world's strongest, the world's greatest. A path that Zoro, through Buddhism and the ashra, surely walks as well. We will have to wait and see. Don't forget to like the video, comment with your thoughts below, share this with your friends, and subscribe. Also click that notification bell. As always, there is more to come. Until next time, I'll see you all in Valhalla.
무정이 야부레다